Hi guys, welcome to another episode of On the Road to, or The Road to OKC 2016, as I should say. So this week, this video is a little bit later out than it is most weeks, and primarily it's because I've been in recovery mode. I've also had a lot of work on, particularly on Monday, and so getting this done was quite a sort of kind of find a time to do it and then do it. So here I am. I'm doing the update. This week, as you well know, was the birthday bash week on Saturday. We didn't quite, it didn't all go to plan quite as well as I had expected, but that's not a problem because there was still some fun had. The main point that I really took away from this weekend was the lessons that I learned about bolt action on such a big scale. We will be having some video from the actual event, and then I'm going to really talk about the kind of lessons learned from it and how things could be done differently. Certainly thinking forward to Oklahoma City, how might I make the game quick and playable? Our game, it wasn't that it wasn't playable, but it was slow. Part of that is down to people sitting and talking and not really focusing on the game, not being keen to move it along quickly, to make it that entertaining, fast-paced game that it can, bolt action can be. But part of it was just the numerous amounts of dice, order dice, units per side, and I guess I kind of went into it knowing that might be an issue, primarily because part of the idea behind the birthday bash was getting everything that I've got on the table, and let me tell you now, if you're ever thinking of doing that, and you want to have a really good game of bolt action, that's not the way to go about it. As I learnt, the game at times was slow. It was fun, particularly with some of the results that came out. I was really surprised actually by my French. My French were the big surprise of the day, really, in terms of pure sort of kind of overall victory. But we'll get to that shortly anyway. I did make army lists, and I will be posting those on my Facebook page to give you an example of what was included. I would completely and utterly encourage anybody who is doing a game and not, kind of having other people play, to make these lists. These are really easy and they're very simple to follow once you've made them, and they're made through easyarmy.com, the bolt action specific Easy Army creator. Very good. Particularly because it shows you how many points, how many order dice. It also tells you what's in each squad, what they've got, and it covers any special rules that they might have. So rather than playing your game and thinking, oh, were they that group with that special rule, or was it that group? Yeah, yes, you could, you'll have to tell them apart, but at the end of the day, you can say, oh, well, this squad should have this many rifles, this many SMGs, or whatever it is, and follow through that way. So that was particularly good, and first time of using those lists, and I was very impressed, and they will be being used for Oklahoma City for absolute definite. So let's take a look at some of the videos, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about lessons learned. Okay, let's check that out.
Okay guys, here we are on the birthday bash weekend. The game is a little bit fictitious. It's based in 1940. The Germans are invading Belgium, although the Belgians have not turned up. And to help them out, they've asked the Japanese to send a group, a force to help, and they've also requested the help of the Russians, who are in the Nazi-Soviet pact at this point, so they're helping out. Against them, we've got the British, with some interesting characters from the future, say 1944. We've also got some Americans, and we've got some French. The British will be holding this bridge here, The Americans will be holding this bridge here, and the French will be holding this fort here, which defends the road to France. We also have a special guest, Flying Officer Tipper, who has some intel and needs rescuing. So that's the table. The Axis will be coming on from this side of the table, and the Allies will be defending the objectives along this side. And very quickly, there's the Germans, 2 platoons. I'll put the list up on the video. Japanese, Russians, a couple of platoons of British. Lovely, lovely. Some Americans, and some French, the unpainted. Okay, we're going to crack on with the game and we'll take some more photos and take some more video there. Okay guys, here we are at the end of turn 1. That's taken us about an hour and a quarter. So quite a long turn, but we reckon we've got probably about 50 order dice at least. So on the French side, we have the French forces moving out there with some artillery, plenty of infantry, and there's a section of Paras that have come over to help, as well as a para machine gun, and the Renault R35 is taking up position to help counter the Japanese who are moving in. We've got an anti-tank suicide squad, we've got a medium mortar just there, they've taken a hit. We've got then some Japanese infantry in command. Then towards the centre we've got the Russians who've moved in and killed the American machine gun before they got a chance to fire, which was a bit of a shame. But they're holding this side of the bridge. On the other side we've got the Americans nicely fanned out with a Pershing sitting at the end of the bridge with some commandos, so that's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And then moving further over, we've got the Germans who have taken up a defensive position against the British, who are on the other side of the road, taking up their defensive position, and some British reinforcements behind. We've had a bit of tank-to-tank firing. The Panzer II took a couple of hits. The Stug then hit the Chaffee, or Chaffee, or however you pronounce it, with some HE and caused 5 pin markers. So at the moment, everybody's on the side of the river that they should be, other than the French, who are probably lost. But everything's going pretty well. We're going to try something a little bit different to speed it up. We're planning to draw the dice in the usual manner, but then rolling a d6 to determine how many order dice come out. On a roll of 1 or 2, we're going to have 1 order dice, 3 and 4, 2 order dice, and 5 and 6, 3 order dice, and hopefully it won't take us nearly an hour and a half to get a turn in. So yeah, and now everything's on the table, it should be even quicker. So we're going to crack on with turn 2, and we will see you in the next clip. Okay guys, here's the end of turn 2 update. We've had a bit of change in the sides of players, but never mind. The French are becoming aggressive and are moving across the ford and have pinned quite heavily the Japanese. They're more team suffering. They've lost their anti-tank suicide squad. Some other people are pretty much pinned down there. The Russians have moved a machine gun into the town hall, but took some heavy fire from some Team Americans who were in ambush. The Russians have somewhat stalled, and so have called up the help of some Germans. Their T-34 took some heavy hits, had a fire, put it out, but they might not last too much longer. Americans are on the bridge with the Pershing on top, which had a nice hit on the T-34. And then over here, the British and Germans are still exchanging fire. Germans are moving up, British holding the bridge. Apart from that, not too much more going on. Allies still hold all 3 objectives, and they claim the 4th flying officer, whatever his name was, Tippy or whatever. They got him at the end of turn 1, so they're 1 point up, and currently 4 points up in total, but we'll see how that goes. Right, let's crack on with turn 3. Okay guys, we got to the end of turn 3. It's now 6:10. We started at roughly about 2 o'clock. So 4 hours for about halfway through, so we're actually gonna call it a night here and go do some get some pizza. But just a roundup of what we've got at the end of turn 3. We've got French with a little bit of support from British paras making strong headways against the Japanese force, who are heavily pinned, I would say, and definitely crumbling. Then in the center, the Americans are making a little bit of headway against the Russians. The Germans made a final last-minute charge. Sorry, not the Russians, the Germans. And yeah, they got slaughtered. The Russians, I guess, are still holding on firm.
They got a few confirmed.
They could push back in the last few turns if we were to play them. And then the British have started to crumble a little bit with heavy German pressure of, well, we got 5 sections and 2 tanks. But the commandos are sort of holding out okay, with a little bit of armour and support. So possibly the weakest of the 3 points for the Allies. Be interesting to see how it went if we were to do the last 3 turns, but we haven't got another 4 hours. So at that, we're going to pack up, and we'll, I'm sure I'll fill in something after this video. Okay,
so there you have it. So it was an interesting game. It took us, we probably set up, I don't know, I can't remember, I'm sure I said in the clips, but must have started off setting up at about 1. We were probably starting to play by about 2:15. Really, in terms of lessons learned, I thought the table was brilliant. The terrain and the layout and what I had and where I had it worked very well. I think there was a good amount of cover for those coming in. There was a good amount of cover for those, you know, there was cover for the Allies so that they could hold the objectives. There was also good cover for the attackers, the Germans and the Axis, coming forward to try and take the objectives. There perhaps wasn't enough oomph and emphasis from the Axis to take the objectives, particularly the downed pilot. It was kind of a case of, I think, because the British took an early position and moved forward and took that and held it very strongly with the 10-man section there, I think the Germans were at a bit of a point where, well, we've just come on, we could give rounds, but we're probably not going to be able to push them out. So that objective maybe needed to be closer to the Germans, I think, to give it an equal opportunity. So again, but that's not an objective I'm planning to have in the game. The 3 objectives are going to be, you know, the 2 bridges and the ford. So in terms of those objectives, I think they were well placed, and I think it gives enough space for the Germans to come on and to put up a good fight. Now, the interesting point that I think comes out of this is that the Germans have enough space to get on, to start to organise and then to push. I think the Allies set up those defensive positions, and there's nothing really encouraging them to go forward and attack, which is fine. It is very much a kind of hold until relief scenario. So the emphasis is all on the attackers to go forward and to try and take the objectives. And with the game on Saturday, we had the advantage of having, basically, it was 4 platoons, and you could pretty much line up 1 platoon against an opposite number. So it was a 1-on-1 platoon battle in 3 sectors, with an additional platoon to be put to strengthen particular parts of the line. And that worked well, except for too many units, should I say. So I think I need to revisit, and certainly when I'm thinking about the early war game for Oklahoma City, I need to revisit the army lists, and I need to look at how many sections I'm sending out there. I'm now starting to think that actually 2 British sections is enough, 2 French sections is enough, and probably I might push it to 3 or 4 Belgian units just because they're going to be inexperienced. I might have 1 veteran unit, the chasseurs, but certainly the regular infantry are going to be inexperienced, and so I think it could be worth having those as extras. But And saying that they've got the mortar, they've got a mortar, a machine gun, a command team, 3 units already, with a T-15 tank. That's 4 units. With 4 extra infantry squads, that's only 8 units in total for the Belgian army. The British anti-tank rifle command unit, 2 sections, a Morris CS9, maybe a Bedford truck, maybe 2 Bedford trucks, maybe a light mortar. So that's 8 units. So again, that's not a lot. The French, they've got their Renault R35, light howitzer artillery, with spotter, command team, medic, 2 infantry squads, machine gun team, mortar team. So in fact, actually, historically speaking, it's actually fairly accurate in the sense that the French are the biggest. So we're looking at maybe somewhere at a maximum of 12 dice for the French. But that starts to beg the question, that's 30 order dice just for the Allies. So it gets a little tricky. So the lesson that we learned on Saturday was that if you have a lot of order dice, then it's best to randomly generate how many you get. So what we would do is roll in a d6, and then if you rolled a 1 or a 2, you just got the 1 order dice. If you got a 3 or a 4, you got 2 order dice. And if you got a 5 or 6, you got 3 order dice. And then that sped it up a little bit. And obviously, having an umpire there who can keep the pace going and speed it up and say, right, what are you doing? Right, do that, go for it, done. Next turn, let's pick another one out, let's get going, and really push it like that. Then I think we could probably get through turns a lot quicker than we did. You need to get really turns done in about 10 to 15 minutes, maybe even push it to 20 if you're going to get 6 turns done in 2 hours. And 20 minutes for potentially 30 order dice per side is not a lot. So so I need to rethink that, and maybe I'm going to make them smaller. Maybe with the British I'm going to lose the trucks. Maybe we take the decision that actually we don't need British to be able to reinforce other sectors. Now, yes, they would have been able to do that, but you know, it's difficult. Do the Belgians need as many infantry sections? Maybe not, but I am conscious that I need to balance the points out so that it's not a bloodbath on the from the Allies' point of view. Now, the Germans are only going to have 2 platoons, but they are going to be fairly strong platoons. 3 infantry squads each, a machine gun, I think actually possibly 2 machine gun units, a medium mortar, a Panzer II, a staff car, maybe I drop that, maybe I don't need that. It's difficult because again, it's I want to keep the structure of it fairly accurate, but I don't want a lot of units. So 3 infantry squads, a command team, a medic. Well, that's 5 units already in your platoon, plus a tank, plus 2 machine guns and a mortar. That's 9. So that's 18 dice for the Germans. I've also got the motorcycle with the machine gun on it in there as well. So that's 10 dice. So that's 20 dice. So we're looking at 20 order dice versus about 30 order dice. Can the Germans push through? Maybe. I think they probably could. It's going to be interesting. I really do think it's going to be interesting, and hopefully, it being so big, we're probably going to have to implement the roll of d6. Maybe we go throw some d4s in there and say, right, you roll a d4 to see how many you get, and you just go 1, 2, 3, or 4. Or maybe roll a d6 and we say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 potential dice is coming out. Because 6 dice is, if we say that you have to evenly split them between your 2 forces, your 2 platoons, or your 3 platoons, depending on which side you're on, that could make it interesting. Maybe that's a way to go. So, yeah, pretty excited about that. So, learnt army size is important. Terrain is good. Speed speed of the game is key to keep people interested and keen to play. So, and hopefully Oklahoma City, that's not going to be a problem because people are going to be there and they're going to want to play, and there's going to be a lot of interest hopefully for it, and we're going to get a game played well and quickly. So I'm not too panicked about that. But so what I have really decided is that it's time for me to start to. I mean, I've been focused already. I've got units painted up. I think it's time for me to now focus on finishing off what I've got. So it might be a while before I buy anything more. I am half tempted to buy buildings rather than build them because of time and ease. Jury's still out on that because I know what I want. I've got quite a few buildings that I want, and actually whether it's worth buying some and then just and adding my own touch to them, that might be an option. So I'm gonna have a think about that. I've certainly got some extra units to get, obviously the Belgians, but I think in terms of the French, I'm done. I don't think I'm going to add anything more to the French. I do have quite a few repairs to do from the weekend, which is slightly worrying, but yeah. So I think French, I'm done. I'm going to say that army's done. The Germans, I've got a few more extra support units to come, and an additional Panzer II, additional motorcycle with sidecar. I've got this Stuttgart to finish building, so I might make that a pledge soon. British, I need one more infantry squad and CS9, and then I think I'm done with that. I think they're done. And then, so I'm not going to put out huge forces. I think that's my real kind of big lesson from this. Don't throw out big sides. Small, effective, compact teams, almost under 1,000 points, maybe 750 points for a side. If I could get a side for 750 points, then certainly for the Germans platoon-wise, that could make a big difference. So yeah, so I'm going to rework those, and it might be that is this week's task, to rework them, and then from there I can work out what it is that I'm going to work towards next week, because I enjoyed the weekend to an extent. I kind of came away from it feeling a little bit down, that it hadn't been as successful as I wished, that there were big issues with it that I needed to work through. So I've kind of had to get back on the horse. So I feel like I'm kind of going to take a little bit of time off, just a week, just this week, work on the army list so it's nothing too intense. And then I think next week I'll get back into to put myself a project to do for the week and getting that done, and that might be paint up some figures, that might be I don't know, continue working on my Stuttgart, maybe have a look at the building situation and decide what I'm going to do with that. I did get all my Germans built and based, so all the Germans are built and based. I have a couple of repairs to do on one or two of them, because they took a little bit of damage, but once I've got that, the Germans are all done, so then I can start the painting process with them. So yeah, really pleased with that. So guys, I'm going to stop waffling, because I'm sure you've seen enough already and you've heard enough. But needless to say, we've taken a few hits this weekend, but that's not going to stop us. That's not going to discourage us. And I'm going to get back on the horse and excuse me, and get this project done. So watch out this week. I'm definitely gonna have bolt action basics on Saturday. Hopefully I'm gonna have a review. I might do something like the early war German motorcycle with sidecar. I might do a kind of building that tutorial as well, maybe for the bolt action basics or something anyway. Actually, bolt action basics this week is building Germans, plastic Germans, so we'll put that up, parts 1 and parts 2. So if you've liked this video, please like, comment, subscribe. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Obviously if you've got experience playing big, 10 foot by 4 foot tables, with oh, by the way, 10 foot was great because there was enough room for there to be sort of separate sections, and 4 foot was perfect because the battles started pretty quick with, you know, from turn 1 onwards. So that was good. So if you've got experience playing big games, please leave some comments. Subscribe to the channel. It's great. We're nearly up to 40 subscribers, and I'm, you know, feeling very blessed about that. So thank you for all your support. And have a great rest of the week, and I will see you in another video very soon. Okay, till then, take care.